They burned the books, they buried the scrolls, they called the men who wrote them heretics. But before they could erase everything, a few copies survived, hidden in jars, sealed in desert caves, waiting 2,000 years for this exact moment. And what those texts contain will shatter everything you thought you knew about Jesus, about prophecy, and about the world you are living in right now. Because what if Jesus never asked you to follow him? What if the entire point, the actual mission, was to warn you about something coming? Something ancient, something wearing the face of God's chosen one. And what if the men who controlled Christianity for the last 17 centuries made absolutely certain you never read those warnings? Stay with me, because by the end of this you will not see the world the same way again. Let's begin where history tried to end the story. The year is 1945. A farmer in Upper Egypt is digging near the cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif. His shovel strikes a sealed ceramic jar. Inside 13 leather-bound codices, 52 texts, written in Coptic, composed in Greek. Dating back to the earliest centuries of Christianity, these are the Nag Hammadi scriptures, the Gnostic Gospels. The books the Church Fathers didn't just reject, they hunted, they burned, they labeled as demonic. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD didn't just decide which books belonged in the Bible. It decided which version of Jesus the world would be allowed to know. Every gospel that described Jesus as a teacher of inner liberation, gone. Every text that said the kingdom of God was inside you, not above you, gone. Every scroll that named the rulers of this world as spiritual parasites feeding on human ignorance, sealed in a jar and buried in the sand. But here's what they couldn't bury, the truth that these texts encode. A truth so precise, so architecturally advanced, that when you read it in full, it reads not like ancient history, it reads like a map of right now. Let's establish what these texts actually say. Not what you were told they say, what they actually say. The Gnostic framework begins with a cosmology, a picture of reality that is radically different from anything in mainstream Christianity. At the apex of this cosmology is what the texts call the One, the monad, the infinite, silent, self-luminous source of all being, pure consciousness, pure light, boundless and unknowable. This is the true God. Not a personality, not a ruler, not a judge, a living light that simply is. Below the monad, through a series of divine emanations called aeons, a problem occurs. One of these emanations, called Sophia, meaning wisdom, acts independently. She attempts to create without her divine partner, and what she produces is something monstrous, a being of ignorance, arrogant, violent, and completely convinced of its own supremacy. This being, the demiurge, looks at the realm below and declares, "I am God. There is no other God but me." The Nag Hammadi texts describe him with devastating specificity. He is Yaldabaoth. His face is that of a lion. His body is that of a serpent. He is neither fully evil nor fully conscious. He is simply ignorant. He creates not out of love, but out of lack. And everything he builds reflects that lack. A material universe designed not to liberate souls, but to contain them. A cosmic prison with beautiful bars. And he does not rule alone. This is where you need to pay absolute attention, because this is the architecture that governs your daily life, whether you recognize it or not. The demiurge creates agents. The Gnostic texts call them archons, rulers in the original Aramaic and Greek, lords of the air, princes of the present age. The Apocryphon of John names them. The Gospel of the Egyptians catalogues their domains. Some texts speak of 365 archons, one for every degree of the solar year, each governing a different dimension of human experience. Fear, lust, tribalism, rage, the compulsion to consume, the hunger for dominance, the terror of death. These are not metaphors. In the Gnostic framework, these are functional intelligences. systems of influence that operate through human psychology, through institutional power, through the architecture of civilization itself. They do not appear as monsters, they appear as governments, as religions, as economic systems, as media empires, as ideologies that promise freedom and deliver chains. And crucially, they feed. They are not neutral administrators, they are parasitic. They require human fear, human hatred, human confusion to sustain themselves. Every time a population is driven into tribal rage, every time truth is systematically replaced with spectacle, every time people are made to feel helpless and small, the archons are fed. This is not ancient mythology speaking in symbols. This is a functional description of how power works. And the ancient seers who wrote these texts understood something that modern political science is only beginning to articulate, that the primary weapon of archonic power is not force, it is language. The Gospel of Philip says it plainly. It says, "The rulers wanted to deceive humanity, since they saw that humanity had a kinship with things truly good. They took the name of those things that are good and gave it to things that are not good, so that through names they might deceive humanity and bind them to things that are not good." Read that again. The rulers, the archons, do not rule through obvious violence alone. They rule through naming. They take sacred words, freedom, truth, faith, chosen, patriot, God, and they hollow them out. They fill them with their opposite. And then they give those inverted words to the people, who speak them with complete sincerity, never knowing that the language itself has been compromised. Darkness is called light. Ignorance is called wisdom. The cruelest policy is called protection. The most obvious lie is called divine revelation. And the people, bound to these inverted names, cannot see clearly because the very instruments of their perception have been infected. This is not a new phenomenon. The Gnostic seers saw it happening in Rome. They saw it happening in Jerusalem. They saw it in the temples and the courts and the Colosseums. They encoded the warning in texts they knew would one day be found by people living in a time when this pattern would reach a level of intensity the ancient world could barely imagine. That time is now. Now I need to show you something that has been called one of the most remarkable passages in all of the suppressed scriptures, because among the Nag Hammadi texts and among several related Sethian codices that survived in parallel traditions, there are passages that do not describe the past. In the stream center, they describe a figure, a type, an archetypal configuration that the seers named with startling precision. They called him the Archon of the West. Let me give you the framework for what that means. In the cosmological symbolism of the ancient Mediterranean world, direction was not merely geography. Direction was spiritual orientation. The east, where the sun rises, represents enlightenment, awakening, the origin of divine light. Every mystery school from Egypt to Persia to the Essene communities of Judea oriented their sacred spaces eastward. To face east was to face the source. The west, where the sun dies, represents the descent into matter, the forgetting of divine origin, the domain of the demiurge, the realm where light goes to be extinguished. In the Pistis Sophia, one of the most elaborate Gnostic texts, the West is specifically described as the region where souls go who have been fully captured by archonic influence, who have lost all memory of their luminous origin. So when the ancient texts describe an Archon of the West, they are not describing a person from a Western country. They are describing an archetypal function, a figure who rises from and embodies the consciousness of spiritual darkness, who does not merely lie, but who constitutes a living lie, whose entire existence is organized around the inversion of truth, the mockery of wisdom, and the feeding of archonic power through mass confusion and mass rage. And the texts are specific about what this figure does. He rises claiming divine selection. He positions himself as chosen, not by the true God, the One, the monad, but by the demiurge. And because the masses have been conditioned to confuse the demiurge's voice for God's voice, they receive him as sacred. They hear his declarations of divine favor, and they do not ask, chosen by whom and for what purpose. He nullifies wisdom. Wherever knowledge, critical thinking, education, and access to truth attempt to root themselves, this figure works systematically to uproot them. He does not attack wisdom frontally, because wisdom would recognize a frontal attack. He undermines it laterally. He makes wisdom seem elitist. He makes ignorance seem pure. He makes the most educated voices in a society seem suspicious, while amplifying the most confused ones. He once said on record, with a crowd cheering, that he loved the poorly educated. He embraces and models lies as a spiritual practice, not as a tactical tool deployed occasionally for gain, but as an entire mode of being. He lies when truth would serve him better. He lies reflexively, compulsively, architecturally, creating entire alternative realities through the sheer volume and confidence of his fabrications. And his followers do not reject him for this. They love him more for it. Because archonic consciousness does not evaluate reality, it consumes spectacle. And he is the greatest spectacle the West has produced. He mimics the sacred. He wraps himself in the symbols of faith, the Bible, the cross, the language of salvation, while embodying the precise opposite of everything those symbols originally pointed toward. He does not feed the hungry. He does not comfort the stranger. He does not love the enemy. He weaponizes the name of Christ while waging war against Christ consciousness in every policy, every declaration, every act of deliberate cruelty dressed as strength. And the Gospel of Judas, the text that most directly records Jesus' warnings about institutional religion, tells you exactly what to expect from the religious structures that align themselves with this kind of power. Jesus looks at his own disciples in that text, the most faithful followers, the ones building the church, and he laughs, not with joy, with the laughter of tragic recognition. He tells them, the God they are serving is not the God of light. They are performing rituals and building institutions for the demiurge, and they do not know it. They have been perfectly deceived. See? Now, here is the layer that most commentators miss, because it is easy to watch all of this and turn it into a simple political story, a story about one man, one movement, one country. But the Gnostic seers were not interested in political stories. They were interested in cosmic mechanics. And the cosmic mechanic at work here is far older and far more demanding than any election cycle. The Archon of the West is not the problem. The Archon of the West is the symptom. The problem, the root infection, is the part of you that still believes the demiurge's world is the only world. The part of you that has forgotten your origin as a being of pure light. The part that has accepted the prison as home, the chains as comfort, the names the rulers gave as the truth of what you are. Because here is what the Apocryphon of John reveals about the nature of archonic possession. The archons do not capture you from outside. They capture you from inside. They install themselves in the divisions of your own psyche, in the war between your mind and your heart, between your logic and your feeling, between your hunger for truth and your terror of what truth will cost you. The Adam and Eve narrative in the Gnostic texts is not a story about disobedience. It is a story about division. The first human being in the original pneumatic tradition was androgynous, whole, containing within itself the full spectrum of divine intelligence. And the demiurge, recognizing that a whole being cannot be controlled, performed the primordial act of archonic strategy. He split it. He created duality. He created the illusion that mind and heart are enemies, that reason and love are incompatible. That strength requires the suppression of tenderness. That wisdom requires the rejection of feeling. And from that original division, every culture war, every tribal conflict, every manufactured us versus them has followed. Because a divided self is a controllable self. A divided society is a feedable society. and the archons have been perfecting this division for millennia. This is why the Gospel of Thomas records Jesus saying something that sounds almost nothing like anything in the canonical Bible. He says, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, then you will enter the kingdom. Not when you follow the right rules, not when you confess the right doctrine, not when you belong to the right nation or the right church. When you make the two one, when you reunite what the demiurge divided, when the mind and the heart stop fighting and start listening to each other, when the serpent's wisdom and the dove's love operate as a single instrument, then the archons have nothing to feed on, because you are no longer producing the division they require." Let's name the 5 signatures of archonic capture in a human system, because this is the practical layer. This is what you are watching for in culture, in leadership, in yourself. The first signature is the inversion of language. When the words for sacred things are systematically used to describe their opposites, when freedom means servitude, when patriotism means tribalism, when faith means fear, you are watching archonic language at work. The second signature is the weaponization of ignorance. When a system actively discourages reading, study, critical thinking, and access to historical truth, when those who ask questions are treated as enemies, and those who repeat slogans without examination are celebrated, you are watching archonic education at work. The third signature is the manufacture of division. When every social policy, every media cycle, every political event is engineered to deepen the fracture between groups of people who would otherwise recognize their shared humanity, when the energy of an entire society is redirected from creation to conflict, you are watching archonic politics at work. The fourth signature is the hijacking of the sacred. When genuine spiritual longing, the soul's real hunger for the light it came from, is captured and redirected into institutional loyalty, into tribal identity, into the worship of human figures who claim divine appointment, you are watching archonic religion at work. And the fifth signature, the most personal, the most difficult to face, is the internalization of the prison. When you find yourself believing that you are fundamentally broken, that you need an external authority to save you, that your inner knowing cannot be trusted, that the divine light the Gnostic texts insist is your birthright, is somehow too ambitious a claim for someone like you, that is the demiurge's most intimate work. That is archonic capture at its most successful, and now because the seers did not write these texts to condemn you, they wrote them to liberate you, here is what the path out actually looks like. The Gnostic path is called gnosis, direct knowing, not belief in a proposition, not membership in an institution, not the performance of rituals designed by someone else for your compliance. Gnosis is the immediate, personal, undeniable recognition of your own divine origin, the moment when the soul remembers what it is. When the spark inside you, what the texts call the pneuma, the breath of light, ignites in recognition of its source. And the texts are unanimous about what catalyzes that ignition: truth, not comfortable truth, not truth that confirms what the archons have told you, the disruptive, destabilizing, prison wall-cracking truth that says the world you have been taught to see is a construct. The self you have been told you are is a diminishment. The divine light that the demiurge built this entire reality to keep you from recognizing, that light is not somewhere else, that light is what you are. Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas does not ask you to pray to him. He says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. That is not a spiritual metaphor. That is a precise psychological and cosmic instruction. The divine knowing that lives inside you, if you develop it, if you protect it, if you refuse to let the archon's language, the archon's divisions, the archon's fear reshape it into something manageable and unthreatening, that knowing will liberate you. And if you suppress it, if you let the noise of the world convince you that your inner light is arrogance or delusion, the suppression itself becomes the cage. Here is what this means for you, right now, in this exact moment of history. You are living in the middle of an archonic maximization event. Everything the seers described, the inversion of language, the manufacture of division, the rise of the false messiah figure, the capture of institutional religion, the systematic assault on wisdom, is happening simultaneously, at planetary scale, with technological amplification the ancient world could not have anticipated. The archons do not need temples now. They have algorithms. They do not need priests. They have influencers. They do not need to burn libraries. They have social media scroll loops designed at the neurological level to prevent sustained, deep, contemplative thought, which is the exact cognitive state required to access gnosis. This is not an accident. Systems are not accidentally optimized against human liberation. The architecture of maximum distraction, maximum outrage, maximum division, and minimum contemplative depth does not emerge randomly. It is the modern expression of an ancient design. But here is what the seers knew that the architects of that design have always known and always feared. You cannot permanently suppress the pneuma. The divine light in a human being does not extinguish. It can be buried under decades of fear and conditioning and false naming. It can be made unfamiliar. It can be made to feel dangerous. But it cannot be destroyed, because it is not a product of the material world. It predates this cosmos. It will survive this cosmos. And in any given human being, in any given moment, it can ignite. That is why they burn the books. That is why they control the language. That is why every empire in history has eventually turned its violence against the mystics, the seers, the teachers of inner liberation. Not because these teachers are a military threat, because a single human being who has genuinely recognized what they are, a single pneumatic consciousness fully awake to its divine origin, is immune to archonic capture, cannot be divided against itself, cannot be made to feed the machine with fear and rage, and the desperate hunger of a soul that has forgotten it is already whole. You are that possibility. Not in some future life, not after you've done enough spiritual work or read enough texts or earned enough divine favor. Right now, in this body. In this fractured, archon-saturated, spectacle-drunk moment of human history. The question is whether you will bring forth what is within you. I want you to do something before you leave this video. I want you to sit with a single question, not as philosophy, but as lived inquiry. Ask yourself, what would I think, feel, and choose if I were not afraid? Not afraid of being wrong, not afraid of what my community would say, not afraid of the vastness of what I might recognize about myself and about this world. Because that the mind you have access to in the total absence of archonically manufactured fear, that is the mind that was there before the demiurge's division, that is the Adam Kadmon, the primordial luminous human. That is the self the seers were pointing toward, not a self you build. A self you remember. Tell me in the comments what this unlocked for you. Tell me which piece of this landed the hardest, because these conversations are how the pneumatic spark travels between people. This is how the knowledge survives. This is how it always survived, not in institutions, not in doctrines, but in the direct transmission between awakening minds. And if you are watching this channel for the first time, the next video will take you into territory that makes this one look like the introduction. Because what the Gnostic seers encoded about the cosmic timeline we are currently inside, about what comes after the archonic peak, is not a story of doom. It is a story of the most precise, most inevitable liberation event in the history of human consciousness. Subscribe and stay with us. Because the jar has been opened, the scrolls have been read, and the light they contained, the light that was sealed away for 2,000 years, is already moving through the world. You are part of why.